Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're at. Everybody, welcome to week 2 in CE 155, Facility Layout and Design. Chef Suzanne and I welcome you to another fine live session. A lot of great work in week 1. Thank you, everybody, for those of you that submitted. We really appreciate it. That was awesome. Off to a good start. So very impressive. I think week 1 is a great exercise, having to just take the basic steps to the development and learning about facility layout. So you've taken the first steps to move forward into the bigger picture. Like we talked about at the very beginning of the course last week, each week builds upon the next. So good job, everybody. To those of you that did get week 1 done, that's fantastic. Chef Suzanne, what'd you think about week 1?
It was good. I saw some really good work. This is kind of fun because they got to start with the basic 5 menu item. 5 menu items. There we go. 5-item menu. That's where I was going with that. And so the menus that were created, lots of folks took into account using different parts of the kitchen or different equipment. I think the biggest issues that I saw is not having all of the equipment in the equipment list. So forgetting maybe refrigeration. And I know that everybody knows they're going to need refrigeration, but it's, you know, when you're writing down like, oh, I need to make sure I have a stove and have a grill. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you need to make sure you have refrigeration. Like, yes, I do. So refrigeration is the thing I saw missing the most. And having that really thorough list helps with the next handful of weeks being able to design the back of house. And if all of a sudden you start designing and didn't put any refrigeration in your pantry area, that's going to be a problem. So getting it ready in week 1 helps weeks later on down the road. And then when you have to design your kitchen one day, you'll be like, I got to remember all the refrigeration, all the hot equipment, any holding equipment, any prep equipment. So this kind of is just a start getting you ready for when it's time.
Absolutely great comments. Thank you for sharing that. I picked up on the fact that you were talking about being very thorough. And I think that's really critical when it comes to facility layout and design. Thorough and attention to detail and thinking things all the way through to the end is extremely important in the success. Like we mentioned last week in week 1, regardless of where you go in your career, regardless of what you end up doing, you will utilize the information in your career. This, the information that you learn in this class gives you the edge. It gives you the heads up above everybody else that's working in the kitchen because you've already been through this experience. So certainly take notes, especially with your feedback from Chef Suzanne, because I think the information you get from her is extremely critical to help you develop this thought process to get all the way through. So great job, everybody. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Let's move on and start talking about week 2 in CE 155. Let's take a look at the screen and see what's going on over here. Please remember, thank you very much for those of you that are here this evening. That's absolutely awesome. But in order to become successful in CE 155, attending the live sessions is extremely important. We discuss a lot of very theoretical information that is not available in a written format. So attendance at the live session or watching the live session archive is critical to your success. Chef Suzanne and I know very well that those that attend the live sessions or watch the live session archives are the ones that succeed. So good job being here. And then if you're not, make sure you watch the live session archive. And then taking a look at our next thing, please make sure that you are watching the live session archive, but also reviewing the weekly presentation, which is located on the class page shortly following the live session itself. And so we post this information. Everything that we talk about tonight will be posted under the link weekly presentation. So just click on it And you can find any additional information that you might have missed during the actual live session itself. Please be aware that we expect everyone to submit their assignments by Sunday in this class. It's very, very critical that you work ahead of the curve. As a professional chef, we do not wait to the last minute to do things. We do not procrastinate. We run ahead of the time. If it is due on Friday, we try to get it done by Tuesday, just out of force of habit, because you don't know what's going to happen between Tuesday and Friday. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne?
That is so true. It really is. I don't think I have the greatest memory. I need to do things while they're still fresh in my mind. So if I waited until Tuesday, I'd have to rewatch, the live session multiple times, or I'd have to look and making it harder on myself. So the sooner that I would do it to when I learned the information, for me, the better it would be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. Great words of advice, and definitely during when you get into industry, it's really critical to understand if you have one staff member that doesn't show up, that puts you pretty far behind, and what you are going to accomplish that day will not be accomplished because of that one staff member, and that happens quite a bit in industry. So make sure that you stay ahead of the game. You don't want to wait and take a chance. It's just words of advice from experience that Chef Suzanne and I have been through for many years. We talked about the classroom participation policy last week. Thank you, everybody, for wearing your chef coats this evening. Please be aware of this. This is just posted here for your reference to look back upon. Week 2, everybody, in CE 155 is a pretty cool week for all of us. We're going to be getting into deciding on a food service location. How do you choose where your restaurant is going to be? Please do not be under the assumption that if you don't plan on opening a restaurant, that this information doesn't apply to you. It does apply to you, because if you end up running a restaurant, becoming a chef at a restaurant, or working for a restaurant, a lot of times restaurants run into particular challenges. With this information, you're able to find solutions to those problems. So this is very applicable information. So let's take a look at our week 2 class page. Found this picture of this dog. I thought it was kind of cool. Chef Suzanne, you like that dog? What's that?
I do. That is awesome.
Yeah. There's nothing like a meditating dog.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, come on. What else do you want in life? If I ever came home and I saw a dog doing that, I'd probably shoot it.
I don't know that I would stay home if I found a dog like that. I would probably not be hanging around my house long.
That'd be a little awkward, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, week 2, everybody. This is what's on slate for us. We have the research materials. Make sure that you read them and answer the questions. That counts towards attendance. It's very important. So take it upon yourself to get that done. It only takes a couple of minutes to read that information, and it's very, very good. Thank you, everybody, for being here at our live session this evening. We appreciate you taking the time to learn, and make sure that if you're not, you click on this link right here, Live Session Archive, and it takes you right to the archive. And then our assignment this week is a written assignment that we will get into in detail here a little bit later on. Does anybody have any questions so far? No questions about the meditating dog or anything like that? No, we're all good? All right, each week, Chef Suzanne and I like to prepare a prep list for everybody, and that's just what we do in the kitchen. Chef Suzanne has spoken before, and I think she mentioned this last week. The first thing she does after coffee is grab that clipboard, and don't touch the clipboard. It belongs to Chef Suzanne. And it's not just her, but it's most of us in this industry do the same thing. We make ourselves a list because once you're in industry and you are running a kitchen, you are going to have so much on your mind, so many things going on, that you have to have a written path to follow. It will help out. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne?
Yes, and it carries over into so many other parts of my life. I make a list before I leave the house so that I don't forget to stop and get something. Lists are now my life.
I love it.
Everything has a list. I have to have a list.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In my in my other little work that I do at Maryville, I have to have a complete written list. If I don't have that list, then I can't function. And so lists are good. So Chef Suzanne and I prepare this list for everybody to kind of help you out. And this week, what we're recommending is that you read research materials, answer questions, and attend the live session on Wednesday. Sorry, the dates on this one is wrong, and you receive credit for that. And then complete first draft of assignment by Friday. First draft, okay? It's always a good idea to write this assignment out and then sleep on it, right? Because when you wake up in the morning, you're gonna feel a little bit differently about it. Before you submit the assignment on Saturday or Sunday, make sure you review the assignment against the assignment page to ensure that you have met all the criteria to get a 100 on the assignment. Submit assignment on Saturday and Sunday. It's a good week here in CE 155. Believe in yourself, be professional. You can do this, you got it. It's highly possible. Chef Suzanne, you have any advice about reviewing your assignment against the rubric?
This is a great example of how important double checking that assignment submission page is. Just putting in your concept summary each week is 10% of your grade. So if you turn in your assignment and you don't have your concept summary, which you reuse, you recycle it every single week, it's exactly the same. It is a super easy 10%. But if you forget it, all of a sudden, instead of turning in what should be 100, you have a 90. Instead of a 90, you have an 80. So it's 10% of your grade. So double checking to make sure you've hit all the parts of your assignment it shows in this class very much. And that's an easy letter grade just by remembering your concept summary.
Yeah. So complete your assignment in its entirety and then open up the assignment page and just check it off. Yes, I did this, I did that, I did this. You're going to save yourself a lot of heartache, and you're only going to walk out of here with an A. And that is Chef Suzanne and I's goal, to see everybody walk out of here on a successful basis. So any questions so far? Anybody? So moving forward, we need to decide on our location, and this is how you do it. It's not the most overly complicated thing, but like we talked about at the beginning of class, we need to make sure that we are very thorough, we think it through, we pay attention to detail, and these are the steps that you need to take. The first thing you need to do is you need to have a fully developed concept, which is very, very important. You know, you need to decide if you're going to be a fast casual, right? Fast casual would be a Chipotle style setup, or a Panda Express, that type. Family style, are you going to be a Chili's, an Applebee's style restaurant? Fine dining, right? Are you going for your Michelin star? What's in your pocket there? Are you serving pan-seared foie gras with a gastrique? If that's what you're doing, a cafe or a bistro, right? That could also kind of be a breakfast place. Could be a French bistro style, a little bit more casual, but still very high quality food. Fast food, that would be quantified as a McDonald's or I don't even know what fast food restaurants are out there, but those things that you drive through when you're starving. Food truck. Food trucks, I'm not real hip on food trucks, but if you want to choose for one, we support that 100%. So you have to think that through all the way, because they don't make a lot of money. Buffet restaurant, like all those famous Chinese buffets that you see out there. You know, down here in southern Arizona, so close to the border, we have a lot of Mexican food buffet restaurants. Very good. Pop-up restaurant would be classified. That's kind of a thing these days, where very well-noted chefs will open up a restaurant like in an old warehouse space for a day or two. And then a bakery, which explains itself, catering and special event. So you need to understand what you want to be before you can choose the location. Do not put the cart in front of the horse. Do not choose the location to decide what you want to open up there. It doesn't work that way. Any questions? And if anybody does have any questions, on the in the weekly presentation, there is this sheet. We had this sheet last week as well, and it does provide a little bit more in-depth information that will help you zero in on your concept. Step one, concept, okay? You have to understand what you want to be. And then once you've determined what your concept is, it's very, very important that you identify your demographics or your target market. Who are you going to sell that food to, right? Restaurants do not just open their doors and hope that, you know, Joe, X, Y, and Z are going to walk into the door. We target to a very specific portion of the community. We accept all. We don't close our doors just because it's a mother with a stroller, but we do ask everybody to come in. But we do have a certain target market that we are after. So you need to decide who that is. For example, if you are doing a fine dining restaurant, your target market most likely is going to be professionals, higher level of income, higher level of education, people that are celebrating special occasions. Those are the type of people that solicitate fine dining restaurants. Whereas if you were a fast casual restaurant specializing in food that appealed to the Gen X generation, then you know you would certainly go after that target market. Breakfast place, hey, you might be in the downtown area and you might be catering to busy business professionals, lawyers, doctors, that type of thing. That would be your target market. That would help you zone in and tune in as to where you want to be. Taking a look at the slide. So we have some of the different type of target markets include professionals. Those are generally what we call white collar workers. They're educated. They have a little bit more of an educated palate because they've traveled a little bit and they've been exposed to different foods. Empty nesters. An empty nester is defined as somebody who has children that have grown up and theoretically left the house, and hopefully they don't come back because they do that, you know. My older daughter just did that, and that was a great experience. Empty nesters, so you could call them retirees. Families with children, that's a very, very special dining environment for families with children. You have to remember, if you do a finer dining restaurant, it's not really welcoming to children because they have a tendency to kind of twerk the ambiance a bit. So you're going to want to think that through all the way if that's part of your target market. Single millennials, that would be a good portion of those 20-somethings that are floating around out there. Single millennials are into group dining, communal dining, so you could set it up with one long table. You could have a menu that's a little bit more of what we call today at this very minute health conscientious food. That could be grains and broths and that type of thing. And then there's a lot of other groups out there as well, and you don't have to limit it to just those. Say, for example, that you know, you were trying to solicitate the athletes from the local college, and you know the crowd that goes along with that. There's just crowds left and right that you can draw to. Understand the food and beverages that you are going to serve. You will need to have a clear vision of your menu. Does everybody understand that? Last week, you started developing that clear version of your menu. Very, very important to understand what foods you're going to be serving. The reason why this is so important, we're going to learn here in just a moment, because it's going to set your financial affordability as to the type of place you can get into. Once you have a clear understanding of your menu, your restaurant concept, and your target market. Ready? So last week we worked on the menu, right? Now we're zeroing in on our concept. And then the third thing that we need to do before we can start looking for our location is to develop our pricing structure, because your pricing structure will dictate how much money you can spend on rent, which oftentimes will tell you where you could rent. Isn't that funny how that works? Have I missed anything yet, Chef Suzanne?
I don't think so. It all ties together. It really does. And if I always kind of look at it like a puzzle, that if any one of these pieces that you were just talking about, so looking at the menu, the concept, the target market, now the pricing, and then the location, if these things are not well thought out and well planned out, it can be just epic failure for a business. And we've all seen that happen to businesses when they're not in the right place for the type of business, or they haven't thought all of these parts through.
Right, absolutely. I agree with you 110%. So we have to establish these three things first, right? Menu, concept, and pricing structure. Without that foundation, you are dead in the water. So in order to develop your pricing structure, we're going to give you a real generic way of doing this, which will help provide some guidelines in the future should you do this. So we need to identify what a cover is. Please remember this, because later on in the course, you're going to have to work with the term cover. And I know a lot of people will reach out and say, what is a cover? But we're covering this now. Covering? Get it? Okay. So a cover is what we refer to as a guest in the restaurant industry. Okay. So if a person walks in, sits down, and eats, that is referred to as a cover. You need to figure out approximately how many covers you are going to be serving per day. So if your concept is a fast casual concept, you will have a higher number of covers because those are built on volume. Whereas if you have a fine dining restaurant, you are going to have a lower amount of volume, but a higher check average. Okay? A check average is defined as how much money each guest spends in your restaurant. Okay? So if you plan on having 100 seats and turning means each time a guest gets up, leaves, and a new one sits down. Okay? So if you have 10 seats, right, and you turn them twice each day, you will do 20 covers. How am I doing there, Chef Suzanne? Am I getting this right?
You are. It sounds good.
Okay, so let's review this one more time just to make sure everybody understands. If you have 10 seats in your restaurant, 10 chairs, right, and you turn it twice each day, that means a guest comes in, sits down, leaves, and a new one comes in. That is considered a turn. If you turn it twice each day, you take 10 times 2 equals 20. 20 is the amount of covers that you will do each day. Now, based on your menu, you can develop some average pricing that you are going to estimate the amount of money that each guest will spend. Okay? So if your check average, you assume that means food and beverage, how much money each guest is spending, and let's say you come up with $25. Each guest will spend $25. And if you have 100 seats and you turn each seat 2 times per day, you are estimating that you will serve 200 people per day. If you have estimated that your average check will be $25, you will multiply 200 times 25, and that will give you $5,000 per day in revenues. Any questions on that? No? We all good? Cool. Okay, so now that we have an understanding of how we get to some of these revenues, these are estimates. They cannot be solid numbers right now because you haven't opened your doors, but you're going to have to do your best to come up with a realistic, educated guess when you're doing this. Now, your rent cannot exceed, or should not exceed, it could if you wanted it to, but it should not exceed 10% of your monthly gross revenues. Okay. What that means, gross is how much money comes in the dollar into your restaurant. Okay. Once you take out taxes and other expenses, that becomes your net, but that's a whole nother class. So your gross revenues, if you estimate that your gross revenues are going to be $100,000 per month, and you can only spend 10%, right? You could do 100,000 times 0.10, and that will equal $10,000. That's how much money you can spend on rent. That will tell you about where you can put your restaurant. You know, that $10,000 per month in rent is an average rent. It's not fantastic. So you're not going to be in the high rent district, but you're not going to be in the low rent district either with that kind of budget. So you'll be kind of right down the middle. Now you have your menu, cover count, your estimated check average, your estimated revenues. You have an idea of how much money you can spend on rent. Now you have to bring your concept and that location together. How are we doing, everybody? Are we thumbs up? Not going too fast? Do I need to put my seatbelt on, Chef Suzanne?
I think you're good. I know this is where this class starts getting a little deep, where it starts getting like, whoa, we're in numbers, and starts to get, I think, real. This is where it really starts to get real.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because at the end of the day, your number one responsibility in the world of culinary arts is to generate profit. When you walk into industry, there's a lot of people that can slice and dice, but one of the reasons you're going to school is to give you an edge on the competition. And if you are aware of how to generate profit before you walk in the door, you're going to be very valuable to a potential employer. So these are skills that put you ahead of the game. So, you know, certainly try to tune in and follow this. If anybody has any questions after the class, I'll be more so than glad to work with you and help you understand these numbers, but that's just a basic overview of the numbers. Now that you've established that stuff, the concept, the menu, the money part, now you can start zeroing in on a location. There are a lot of factors that come into play. Now, depending on what your concept is, that will kind of steer you into the right direction. If you have a concept such as a fast casual concept built upon volume that you are requiring to be extremely busy 7 days a week in order to reach profitability, you're not going to want to put your business downtown next to the courthouse, because guess what? You're going to lose 2 days of the week because everything closes on the weekend. So you need to find a location that's going to kind of fit in there a little bit. So now you need to begin your search, and we're going to talk about some of the tools that we utilize for the search. Benihana of Tokyo. I went to school with his son. That is so cool, man. Rocky Aoki. Yeah, and his other son, Steve Aoki, the DJ. Those are my guys. Yeah. So you need to start asking yourself a couple of key questions about what you're doing. The first question, now that you've identified your target market, you want to be where they live or they congregate or they work. Okay. So if you are opening a restaurant and your primary target market is millennials, you are not going to open in a retirement community. It just doesn't make sense. Okay. If you are a sports bar, right, where your primary source or your primary times of revenue are going to be middle-aged people, and you plan on them being there from 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. Throughout the week, you're probably not going to want to open up in the downtown area because there's no business in the downtown area. So you have to think all these things through. Something else that's really critical, if you rely on a lot of foot or vehicle traffic in the area, okay? Meaning that a fast casual family style restaurant, cafe or a bistro, those are not what we refer to as being destination restaurants. A destination restaurant is classified as a place that somebody will take the time to travel to and be at for a specific reason. The more casual restaurants, like the fast casual, the breakfast places, and fast food, food trucks, those types of things, those restaurants are primarily convenience, right? It's located near me, so I go there quite a bit. It's not a destination. So if you are relying on a lot of foot traffic and a lot of high visibility, you need to make sure that you put yourself into that area. Chef Suzanne's going to be taking a look at that with your assignment this week. Also, something else really important to consider is, what about other businesses in the area? Okay. And I'm not saying this to be funny, but this does happen a lot. If you are planning, for example, a family-oriented restaurant, you're not going to open up next to an adult entertainment place. And it is amazing how often this happens, because people don't take a look around the surrounding area. You need to look on your map, and then you need to Google all the businesses within a mile or a 2-mile radius to find out, hey, you know, if I have a family restaurant and then this business over here is attracting people that can be intoxicated or can come from the wrong side of the trails, the families aren't going to come to my restaurant because they're concerned. And that is something that you need to be very aware of and take very, very seriously. And then another thing that you also need to take a look at, is there anything in the area, such as event venues, that cause unusual traffic flow? And there are some fantastic intersections to open up restaurants and cafes and that type of thing. But I mean, during the evening, and there's a tremendous traffic flow at that intersection, people can't get to and from you, so they're not going to be visiting you very often. Are you located near a sports venue, right? That once every couple of times a month, there's all these vehicles and there's traffic and you can't get to it. So you have to think all these things through. It's very, very important. And then also, another big issue, you get this information by going to your local Chamber of Commerce, and they'll help you out and they'll provide these statistics for you. But what about demographics in the area? That's something you really have to pay attention to. Demographics are basically a stat of the people that are living in the area with income and education and all these other types of things. You have to be very thoughtful about that. For example, if you're going to be opening up a restaurant, a fine dining restaurant that has an $80 or $100 per person check average, which is not unrealistic, you're not going to open up where the demographics are young working families, because they don't have the type of disposable income to be facilitating that place. So you have to be very, very conscientious about that. As well, that also works in reverse, right? If the demographics in their area are wealthy retirees, you know, fast food is probably not going to go too well because they don't go to those types of places. They're educated, well-traveled palates, et cetera, et cetera. So think that through. It's very, very important. You have anything to add to that, Chef Suzanne?
I think sometimes when people think about choosing a location, sometimes they just think, oh, well, there's this building right here. It seems like it's in a good place. It's got high visibility. It doesn't need a lot of work. But if you're not looking at all of these parts like Chef's talking about, you can run into some major issues because all these things really truly tie together so much that it's everything. You know, you can't just go, well, I really like this building and I always thought it would be great for my business, but then you kind of look at the demographics and maybe that's not the best place to put your business. And so that's why looking at some of these other things that Chef is talking about, like seeing what else is could cause issues with your building. So it really is like a giant jigsaw puzzle. All these pieces really and truly have to fit. So you really have to look at the big picture and not just go, well, I really always like that building right there. Well, that's not best for your business just because that's what you liked or it's in your price range. Maybe there's something somewhere else in your price range that would be better suited because of what else is around it and the demographics and that sort of thing.
Very, very important. You brought up a very important subject here. You are getting to the point in the world of culinary arts where you need to begin to learn to separate what you want from what your business needs, right? From what you want from what the business needs. It's very important to understand the difference, because if I was to go out and choose a restaurant location based on my personal desires, I would end up going broke in a heartbeat. But if I was to go out and choose a restaurant location based on my business's needs, then I have a pretty good chance of being successful. And I've done that before and been successful because I did that for the restaurant, not for myself. So you need to start learning to separate yourself from those two things. Now, moving on to this week's assignment, Chef Suzanne is going to be taking a look at some very specific information that she's going to share here in just a moment. However, before we get there, referring back to last week when you did that menu, that comes into play now about your concept and that type of thing. So if you come back this week and you say, hey, I'm doing a fine dining restaurant, X, Y, and Z, and then Chef Suzanne takes a look at your week one menu and it turns out that it's hamburgers and ham sandwiches, it's not going to jive. It all has to flow together. It all has to make sense. Now, understanding that it is difficult initially to make this happen, the further you work into this course, the easier it's all going to fit together, and you're going to have a better understanding of the way all this is intertwined. Restaurants are very complicated animals. They are not simplistic. And every single thing, location, exterior, interior, menu, customers, target markets, they all have to come together and work together. So be patient with yourself, be understanding, do lots of reaching out, talking to people, Google this, get lots of information. Exposure is really going to help you out a lot. This week's assignment, you're going to have to let us know where you intend on to start your food service business. Be specific. We don't need the address of the location. That's not what we're interested in. And we'll get to that here in just a second. Using full sentences, talk about the advantages and disadvantages of that location. Okay? You are going to talk about 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. Please remember that when you submit written information as a culinarian, we expect professionalism. So please communicate in proper sentences with proper punctuation, proper capitalization, verbs, adjectives, and all those other great things in proper places. As you grow in this business and as you move into management and as you become an executive chef or a restaurant owner or a director of food and beverage, your written communication will be a representation of your professionalism and your ability. So now is a great time to start doing that. And so we look forward to seeing some well-written sentences this week. So using full sentences, talk about the advantages and disadvantages of that location. At least 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. Now, this is kind of the hard part with this class. It's not a hard part, but you have to take a very realistic view, right? I have driven by so many locations and I think to myself, that is awesome. That is fantastic. That's the best I've ever seen. But then when I think about it, there's some drawbacks. And so you need to be honest with yourself and realistically describe what those issues are. For this week's assignment, you can do this in a Google Doc. Submit the link to the doc in the add submission area. Okay? In that area, make sure that you include a brief 1 to 2 sentence summary of your concept. That, like Chef Suzanne was saying, is 10% of your grade. So if you forget this little concept thing here, then you're down 10% already. And the reason why that is so important, Chef Suzanne has to have a clear understanding of what you're trying. And it's not an authoritative thing, but in order to help you grow and evolve and educate you, we need to be understanding what you are thinking. So that is the tool. Chef Suzanne?
Also, not only does the concept summary help me understand, it also helps keep you focused. So kind of like Chef was just talking about, that you want the fine dining, but then your menu's got burgers and ham sandwich. If you're saying on that in your concept that you're going to have a fine dining restaurant, or you're going to serve, business professionals in the evening, or whatever it is you decide, it all needs to flow together, and it keeps you focused, so that when you are designing it, which is coming up in the next few weeks, your front of house and your back of house, kind of keeps you focused, and all of a sudden you don't veer off somewhere weird, and all of a sudden you're designing a little tiny kitchen for a food truck when your plan was fine dining or a cafe to serve professionals. So it not only lets me know so that I can help, but it keeps you in line, and you don't kind of veer off somewhere weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a great sports analogy for that, Chef. I don't know it, but I'm sure.
I don't know. I've worked every weekend my entire life, so I've fed a lot of sports people over the years, but as far as watching them, I've never had too much time. Yeah. Okay, going on. Let's take a look at this week's assignment here. This is an example. Once again, this will be posted in your weekly presentation, so you're able to pull it up at any time that's convenient for you, like when you're working on your assignment, which we highly suggest. This is just an example. Please, plagiarism is not something we take lightly. Chef Suzanne is very skillful in detecting that, and she's pulled a couple of them up, and I'm like, how did she figure that out? But she's good at it. She's good. So examples of an assignment, and I choose an area in the northwest. I chose an area in the northwest section of downtown Happyville. Right, and I've been looking for that place my whole life. Yeah. The area offers some great advantages. One advantage is a high concentration of my target market, which can help with sales and profit. A second advantage is reasonable rent prices compared to the southern downtown area. One disadvantage is that there is a high volume of traffic during rush hour, so it is hard for customers to find parking. A second disadvantage would be low volume of traffic on the weekends, so sales would be significantly lower. So this is a realistic perspective of that location. And we're not out to see if you guys can find the most incredible restaurant location, right? That's not what this is about. This is about taking those tools, your concept, getting some rough money, very simply, finding your target market, putting those together, and putting you in the right location. It doesn't have to be the perfect location. I don't think that exists, but as close as you can get it. Please do not forget to add your 1 to 2 sentence concept summary in the link. It is very, very important. So does anybody have any questions so far? Chef Suzanne, when do you want to see all these assignments?
Well, I'd love to see them by Sunday night.
Sunday night, everybody. I know you can do it.
Yeah. Can you put that up real quick one more time, Chef?
Sure. Let me go back here.
Okay, so when it comes to this particular assignment, I don't want to say that it's easy, because there's a lot of thought involved. But when I say that it's a very brief assignment, this is literally an example of a completed assignment, except it doesn't have the concept summary at the bottom. So if this particular student put their concept summary and turn this in, boom, that's the assignment. So first, there's the explanation of the location, so the northwest section of downtown Happyville. So that's the information about the location. Then next, 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. And so when you put your advantages and your disadvantages in, you want to explain them. So you're not just going to put down, for example, I'll kind of jump down to a disadvantage. You're not just going to say that parking is a disadvantage. what about parking makes it a disadvantage? Because I would think parking is an advantage if you got parking, right? So this is showing that it's a disadvantage because during high volume and rush hour, it's hard for customers to find a place to park. So don't just say what the disadvantage is, explain why that makes it a disadvantage to this particular location. And that's exactly what this assignment is. Pick 2 good things about that location, 2 bad things, and explain them. Also make sure that you're telling me that they're an advantage or disadvantage. Don't just put down, there isn't a lot of parking spots. Was that an advantage or disadvantage? I might be able to guess, but I don't want to guess. I don't want to assume, right? We don't want to assume. So you're going to tell me, this is one advantage, here it is, and why. And this is another advantage, here it is, and why. And then 2 disadvantages, and then your concept summary. Boom. That's the assignment. Very brief assignment that will require some thought, definitely, but not necessarily going to take up hours and hours of your world.
That's absolutely, definitely provide some detail. So in other words, as an advantage is not an acceptable advantage is not the spot is good, right? Yet at least the reason why it's good and why it's advantageous to your business. If the spot is bad, do not just simply list spot is bad, right?
And with this assignment also, I think sometimes we go into things in our, what they call them, rose-colored glasses, where sometimes it's really easy to see the advantages of a location and say, oh, well, the downtown area is perfect. There's tons of customers in the morning. There's, the location is, the rent is reasonable. And so you can think of 50 good things. Gotta, almost even more important than the good is going to be the bad. And so sometimes you kind of have to take a step back to really identify some of those disadvantages. And you might say, oh, well, if I'm going to put a food truck in downtown, that could be a problem because there's not a lot of parking. So it's hard to get to me. Or maybe the weather in your area is really bad. Or maybe there's a lot of traffic where, there's so disadvantages, I think, are even harder to identify. So they're going to take a little more thought, I think.
Yep, I agree.
But I almost think they're even more important. Advantages are important, but I think almost disadvantages, because some you can maybe able to work around. You might be able to deal with a disadvantage or kind of maybe turn it to your advantage. There are some disadvantages that may be a deal breaker. You might find a location that you find lots of great things about, but there's no parking lot.
Yeah.
And there's no parking garage nearby, and you might go, oh, well, everything about this location is perfect, but there's no parking. That might be a deal breaker. So that one disadvantage can outweigh 50 advantages.
Absolutely. Those are words very well spoken. So be real. You cannot, in the restaurant industry, a lot of times we find ourselves reacting to problems, and you cannot react to the problem until you identify the problem. And if you go into the place understanding that there is a challenge with your location, you're much more apt to being able to deal with the problem and overcome the problem versus just ignoring it and not being honest about it. So that does make a big difference. We do want to take a look at this sheet. If your concept does not fall into one of the aforementioned concepts, and I think Chef Suzanne put this sheet together, which is fantastic. Restaurant, bakeries, buffets, bistro, delis, etc. Your assignment will be based on location only. Food trucks and trailers, yes, you are mobile. I love that. That's awesome. But you must choose one location only that will be your primary selling location. Also remember, you may need a commercial kitchen to prepare food in before it is transported in your truck. Make sure that you include this information in your assignment. And then caterers. You're going to utilize your location based on the location of your commissary. A commissary kitchen is defined as a kitchen where we do our meal preparation. So you'll have to do that. Private personal chef, create this assignment based on the location of your commissary as well. Then everyone, your kitchen must be a separate or commercial commissary kitchen, not home-based. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne?
Yep. I mean, if everyone could cook out of their kitchen, probably lots of people would. Just because you might see people do it and know people do it, or maybe even done it yourself. There are very, very, very few places in the U.S. that allow you to cook from home. So just to be aware. So when we work on these assignments, we want you to be planning on having an outside facility. So some sort of commissary or commercial kitchen that you've purchased or rent or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And we highly recommend that you stick within the restaurant bistro type concept. You're going to get the most learning and the most value out of following that guideline, even if your eventual plan is to become a caterer, a food truck, or a personal chef, something like that. We highly urge you to stick within the confines of working with a restaurant location. You'll benefit a lot more from the actual assignment and from the entire course as well, because I think once you go through food and beverage cost control, some of your thinking might change a little bit towards some of those concepts. And taking a look just to ensure that everybody knows how to submit, you're going to click on the Add Submission button. There is no folder in this class, so don't be looking for the CE 155 folder. This is not a traditional class. So you're going to click the red submission button, and then once this screen pops up, you will copy and paste the link to your Google Doc, or you could just type in your information right here, whichever you like to do. And it's probably a little bit more convenient for Chef Suzanne if you just type the information right here. Probably save her a couple of clicks on the old mouse.
Either one is fine. I don't mind. Some people actually prefer a separate document. Just kind of keeps them, you know, they like that pretty white page. But either is fine. Some people just type right in that assignment box.
So either one is acceptable. There's no problem about that. And then to make sure you click the Save Changes button down there at the bottom, and then that assignment will go to Chef Suzanne. And make sure that you include your 1 to 2 sentence concept summary in there to have a good idea of what we're working on. So we want to make sure that this week we get our assignments in no later than Sunday. We need to be professional and ahead of the curve. It's extremely important. We are in the world of professional culinary arts where you're not at home anymore. We expect that you stay ahead of the game. So any questions, thoughts, or concerns? Anyone? Crickets, crickets.
I do hear the crickets. It's awfully quiet. Yes. They're all excited to get going on this one.
So ladies and gents, this is a quick reminder before we wrap up our week 2 live session. Make sure that before you reach out, you have watched the live session archive and you've also reviewed the live, the weekly presentation. Then give us a call. We are here to help you succeed. We will spend the day walking through with you to help you out. If you have any questions regarding your assignment submission or the grade that you have received, or any questions about your evaluation, make sure you talk to Chef Suzanne. She'll be the first one to help you out. And if you have any questions about the mechanics of the assignment, make sure you give me a call and I'll be glad to work with you. If we don't hear from anybody, Nikki, is that how you say the name, Nikia?
Yeah, Nikia, Chef.
Hi, Nikia.
Hi, sorry, I was busy in the other room.
You're fine.
One quick question on the concept. Is it okay to keep the same concept throughout the whole course, the first one that we made, or does it need to be a different one every assignment?
No, it actually should be the same every single week. So that's why getting it right at the beginning. So putting a lot of detail. It's not really about the food, you know, in this particular course. More about what you're going to do. It's like I might say, you know, I have a fine dining Italian restaurant. It's going to be open Tuesday through Sunday, open for dinner only, seats 100 people.
Right. Okay.
I would copy and paste that every single week. And that's what I would need to know to kind of help and keep, it also helps, like I said, keep you all focused. So, yep,
okay, cool.
Reuse it. Once you get it perfect that first week, just keep on recycling. Boom, 10% of your grade and ready to go.
Okay, sure will. One other quick thing. Where is Chef Jackie a part of this class too? Because she actually graded my paper and I was like, yeah, Chef Jackie.
She is. Chef Jackie is the other evaluator. There's actually 2 of us in this course.
Okay, cool. 2 of my favorites.
She just has another live session, so she can't come tonight.
Oh, okay. All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And like Nakia was just mentioning, to use the same concept throughout the entire course, you will notice over the next, what do we have, 5 weeks left? The next 5 weeks that your concept is really going to change. And you're still going to be using that same concept, but the way you look at it today and the way that you look at it in week 6 will be 2 different views, which is a wonderful thing to see everybody go through. We really enjoy that part. So thank you,
That's
everybody.
actually one of my favorite parts of this course, Jeff, is in the last week. I won't, spoiler alert, but in the last week, there's some information where they kind of take what they've learned. And I enjoy where students say, well, I thought I was going to do this, but now having been through this course, I think I might do this and this. And I thought this was how I was going to do things, but I think I'm going to do this and do this. And I always think the growth in these 6 short weeks in this course is just huge.
Amazing.
So I like that a lot.
A lot of people start out trying to do project A, but by week 6, they're like, it ain't going to happen. Let's do something else. So great point. I'm glad that you brought that up. Anything else from anybody? Ladies and gents, thank you for a very good week 2 live session in CE 155. Once again, if you need help, let us know. We look forward to talking to you. Make sure that you post attendance at least every 4 days. It's a critical activity. Make sure you do it. We want to make sure that you stay very close to the program. Those that do post attendance at least every 4 days are the ones that succeed, and that is our ultimate goal, to get everybody through this class with an A. That would make us feel so good. So I hope everybody has a fantastic week, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.